Can I ask you about the word supposed to? Because that feels like a very loaded term. In our current society, what one is supposed to do is potentially work 90 hours a week to the detriment of one's own heart. And I'm curious, how do you conceive of supposed to for people? Is it based on their own personal goals? Do you come in and say that there is an ideal platonic form of human flourishing that we would want to see? How do you think about supposed to? Because sort of in my question was this idea that you're supposed to post on Instagram. You're supposed to be obsessed with the way you look. You're supposed to do all of these things that I have found unhealthy in my own experience.
Yeah. So I think that shoulds, which is when I work with people like clinically or in a coaching standpoint, like we talk about shoulds a lot. So where do shoulds come from? So shoulds come from a couple of places. One is society. So the more that you consume, for example, social media, the more that we see filters being used on social media, the more people feel like they should look a certain way. So it kind of reinforces that. The second place that shoulds come from, the most powerful place usually that shoulds come from, are actually our family upbringing. Yeah. So that's when we internalize what we should be doing. And I don't think shoulds are evil because, I mean, that's how society functions. So shoulds are, I don't know if this is kind of a good analogy, but shoulds are the way that we know how we fit into particular pieces of society. So for example, I should wash my hands after I take a dump.
I should share my toy. I should not hit my sister.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So we are not, they teach us how to relate to other people. And the third place that shoulds come from is usually some amount of internalization of the other two, where then what happens is people think that the shoulds come from themselves, and we internalize that because I've been taught that I should be this, I should look this way. Everyone else is kind of doing it that way. And then we kind of internalize it, and then we carry that should with us.
Yeah.
So a big part that we sort of help people do is to understand where is the origin of your should.
Yeah.
And once you're able to reflect on it instead of being like automatic about it, then what we sort of find is that people can kind of internally explore and decide for themselves, okay, is this a value that I was given? Is this a value that I want to keep? Is this something that I want to move towards? And that's actually exactly like what happened with me, where like I grew up the kid of two doctors, and my dad, when I was like 9 years old, was like, I have an older brother, and he's like, one of y'all is going to be a doctor and one of y'all is going to be a lawyer. And so I went to college and I was going to be pre-med and I wanted to go to Harvard and all that stuff. And I failed out because I was doing it because I should. And then paradoxically, what happened is I stopped caring about what I should do. And I really just wanted to learn everything that I could about how a human being works. And as I devoted myself to that, it was really bizarre. When I graduated from medical school, I went to Tufts for medical school. I didn't even go to the award ceremony because I didn't think I would ever get an award because I'm failing out. And I was like at the top of my class.
Oh, wow.
And I like wasn't even there to get it. And I just never even looked at my grades.
Wow.
And so ended up matching. And it was really bizarre because the second that I stopped caring about what I should do and devoted myself to something that I really cared about is when I achieved all the things that I had set out to achieve.
I got to ask you about shoulds because I carry, and I know a lot of people do, not with all of them. Some of them I've been able to break quite easily, but there are deep shoulds that there's a tremendous attachment to, and this irrational fear that if I let go of this should, I will, in my own case, become a person that is not safe to be around, or like, my morality is based on not some internal connective tissue, but I, have been conditioned to be kind to other people. So for me, just so that you have a bit of context, I struggle a lot with guilt. And I think, as I've sort of uncovered it, I have this inner fear of badness, that if I don't have a strict Jiminy Cricket moral code that drives me, that I don't even know what would happen, that something would let go and be bad and could hurt other people. And I'm curious of your perspective on, I guess, humans in general. Do you believe that people as adults are generally good when they drop their shoulds, or does society descend into chaos if we don't have that heavy hand of morality that has been carried through and internalized from childhood?
So I think whether it's healthy or unhealthy depends on, once again, who's in control. And this is the big thing that I learned in India. So a should is neither good nor bad. A desire is neither good nor bad. A coping mechanism or a distraction is neither good nor bad. Video games are neither good nor bad. Eating fried chicken is neither good nor bad. Drinking alcohol is neither good nor bad. And I did one set of interesting sadhana, which means spiritual practice, with this group of people called the Aghori Babas. So Aghori Babas, they're like really famous, like in terms of like pictures. So they'll be like on the cover of National Geographic. These are like the Indian mystics that have dreadlocks. Oftentimes they'll like smoke marijuana. They live in cemeteries, and they like don't wear clothes, and they just cover themselves with ash.
Okay.
And Aghor means fear, and is like the opposite of fear. So they like have this spiritual philosophy of like no fear. So even if you look at in spirituality, they're like, you should be pure, right? So what Aghori sadhana really is, and they're Shaivites, so they're like Shiva oriented. And so they're like, we're going to understand the nature of like how things work by engaging in all of the unhealthy practices. And so they do things like eat meat, they'll drink alcohol, they'll smoke pot. And people are like, wow, that sounds great. It's actually one of the most difficult sadhanas that you can do because they do it with an intense amount of awareness.
Yeah.
And so the real thing about whether something is good or bad is who's in control. Is the should in control, or are you in control of the should? When I wake up on, go ahead.
It just seems that, which I don't know if I'm discovering myself or projecting onto what you're saying, that there's this idea that the you behind it, that there is goodness in that you can be trusted without the reins. Is that fair to say, or I don't?
Yeah. So I'm, but absolutely. And this is where we get kind of into weird territory.
Who is you? But yeah.
Yeah. So I work with a lot of like sociopaths, actually. So if you look at like some of the executives that I've worked with, even surgeons and psychiatrists.
Thank you for going here, because this is my question. What if they don't have their shoulds?
So I work with a lot of these people that are very successful, and even psychiatrists and surgeons test highly on the sociopathy scale compared to the regular population. And that too is somewhat adaptive because sociopaths are like not empathic. But as a psychiatrist, if you let your empathy, if you're 100% empathic with every single patient, you will be torn apart because you'll just be ingesting all of their negative emotion. So you have to learn how to put up those barriers.
And I think that's important for people who, I'll speak for myself, who aren't a therapist or psychologist.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. So there's a lot of people, and when I work with sociopaths, these are people with like antisocial personality disorder, not disorder because it's not non-functional, but they can be like real, like nasty people in some ways, is helping them understand. And these are some of the most moral people that I've met, but they're moral not out of feeling, but out of choice. And so we sit down and we really think about, okay, what kind of life do you want? What do you value? They don't feel like a good person, and they're not controlled by guilt or things like that, but they make a choice that costs them, but they make that choice with awareness. And then they end up doing actually like amazing things. They're some of the best people that I know in terms of the value that they provide to society.
If you want to go deeper on this, more confidence, more charisma, and how to show up in a way that has presence in every area of your life, we've built a program that will help you do exactly that. Here's what one student had to say. I went from this very weird person who missed social cues to this guy that could keep a conversation going and make people laugh. The course is called Charisma University. It's had tens of thousands of students go through it, 30 days long, fully guaranteed. If you don't think it was worth it, you get a refund right from inside the program. There's a link on the screen here and in the description. I hope you decide to check it out.